excited to introduce Phim Her, career coach extraordinaire and our speaker for the evening. Phim, we're so excited to have you. I'm going to hand it over to you now. So if you're ready, I will stop sharing so you can, and whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Bernie, everybody, Dan, Lauren, and Amy, and the rest of the team at AIGA Boston for inviting me to be a part of this. Special shout out, especially to Bernie and Dan, who have been with me along the entire way. Hi, everybody. My name is Phim, like Bernie said, and I wear many hats, but among them, one is career coach, which is why I'm here with all of you tonight to talk about how to design your future, especially with respect to thinking about goal setting and just taking a few steps forward, not necessarily doing everything if it feels overwhelming, but giving you just enough of some headway. So what I want to do before I dive in is to give you a little bit more of background about myself. Just one slide. I don't want to make you think that we had you come here just for you to listen to me talk for a long time about myself, but I did want to give you a little bit of background so that you have a sense of who is talking to you. So when I was growing up, I think around first grade, I started hearing this question: who do you want to be when you grow up? And I actually hated this question because I loved being creative, but I felt like I don't want to tie myself to one box, one label, one title for the rest of my life. That may work for some people, but I knew like I just kind of have always loved wandering around and doing a lot. And so I was like, I want to be an art teacher or do something in art and be creative. But ultimately, if you actually zoom down to the bottom of the final bullet right there, I always just knew I wanted to help people and serve them. And I didn't care if that sounded cheesy or too simple. I always knew in my heart of hearts that that was my through line. That was my life mission. And so today's workshop is not about mission finding necessarily and asking you, what is your purpose, in that way. But I want to encourage you to go as deep as you can, thinking about what is the through line for your life and what really matters. That's beyond just a title, but really trying to encourage you to go there tonight if you can. All this to say, I did grow up at some point, and I kind of wandered just like I thought I would. And I want to share with you a little bit about how I have just wandered through and explored many different career paths so that you have a sense that when I say it's okay to take risks or to try something new, especially when it isn't working, that I'm speaking from a place of experience and having thought about that. So when I was in high school, I started doing sound production at the radio. I was also doing some teaching and working with kids in kindergarten classrooms, pre-K art classes, things like that, really focusing on early education and using art as a way or as my medium for that. Then I went to college and I studied art direction and politics and policy. You may be thinking, what the heck? None of these things seemed, connected, right? But I always felt called to do all these things. And I was always very curious. And so I thought, I'll do it all. And I'm sure one day they will connect. They did, because I moved to DC after graduating and I got a job as a designer at a firm that focused on politics and policy. Hello and behold, there was a place for me and my gifts, right? And what I felt called to. And then over time, I actually started training people in different corporate spaces. So then I was using my teacher hat all over again. All of these were my transferable skills that I continue to grow from job to job. It, again, was no longer just about the title, but it was more about the skills that I was learning and how I wanted to keep growing as a whole. Then I moved on to design more at Politico, where I was a senior designer specializing in UX and UI, and eventually found my way to the Washington Post, where I did marketing on a global scale for them through multiple hats and roles there. And then this year, something interesting happened. I got to the point where I realized I was kind of outgrowing my role completely, and I needed to switch it up again. So I decided to start my own business, my own LLC. And today I run my own strategy, design, and also coaching business. And that's why, again, I'm here to talk with you and to share some of my wisdom from not just my short term of being a coach, but from my long-term years of informally and formally coaching and mentoring over the years. So I want to bring this to you, and I don't want the rest of this talk to be all about my past, but I welcome any questions during the Q&A. Again, I just wanted to really give you kind of a level set so that you know who I am as I walk you through the rest of this. All right, so now let's dive in deeper. Oftentimes as a designer, we are hired to help somebody else build their dream. It's their dream of the design, their vision that we are using our gifts to bring to light. But how often are you thinking about the design of your own dreams, aka the design of your future, the design of your life and who you want to be in the now and in the future? Tonight, we're going to dive into that. And I'm going to share with you a couple of frameworks that I found to be helpful as food for thought. Some of them may resonate, some of them may not, and that's absolutely okay. But I hope that along the way, you get to really thinking about who are you, and that these help you dig deeper in thinking about that. And then also thinking about the other side of, all right, so I know that this is what I think I care about. I think these are my goals. How can I hold myself accountable? How can I start building systems of support to make this happen? We'll walk through all of that through these frameworks and throughout this conversation tonight. Before I go any further, I'm going to take a break for a moment and invite all of you, if you don't already have it in front of you, grab a journal or a couple of blank sheets of paper, or open a fresh Word doc or something to write in, because we're going to definitely be doing some writing today. So make sure you have that. I'll give you maybe 30 seconds and just really give you a moment to do that. And you can even put it in the chat if you would like. Just a quick note to say, all right, I got it, or give me some thumbs up so that I have a sense of whether or not we can move on to the next portion. All right, thank you, yay. Okay, so now that we have this blank sheet of paper, next thing I want you to do is think about your 5-year plan, just for a moment. And then throw out your 5-year plan. Forget about it for just a moment. It can always, you can get back to it. Throw out your 5-year plan, and I want to ask you a question, and I want you to get started on journaling in a minute to answer this question. Who were you before you believed in 5-year plans? What brought you joy? What made you peaceful, curious, zealous, and passionate about life and creativity? Who was that person? And you can always get back to this. Oops, I see lots of things in the chat. Oh no, Stuart. Stuart just asked, wait, we were supposed to have a plan. Nope. I can't tell if you're just joking or if you're serious, but yes. Okay. So next question. We're just going to keep these to shorter 1-minute sprints. Who were you, or who are you right now when you're not worried and buried under the layers of stress, doubts, fears, deadlines, schedules, all the things? I'll give you 1 minute. Alrighty, I will shift us into the next slide right here. I just have 2 more of these slides for anybody who's like, oh, this is really not my thing, but please hang in there with me and humor me for a little bit. What is at the core of your humanity, your values, your passions, your joys, your virtues? What drives you? We'll just give you 1 minute for this. And then I'm just going to have us move into the next question because it's actually related. Are your values, passions, and joys, the things you just wrote down, are they already reflected in your current career goals? If so, how so? And if not, why not? We'll spend a minute on this. All right, the 1 minute mark is here. And if you didn't finish any of these, you can always go back because you're the one who owns your document or your journal, and you can always continue to journal more. The reason why I am pushing us to be so personal here and to really go the extra mile is because one of my good friends and mentors, Douglas Davis, likes to say, I can be talking to you and telling you what you can already Google, but that's what Google is for. So how can I really spend time with you in a way that's meaningful and goes deeper? And one way is to ask some of the tougher questions that I think some of us know, oh yeah, like my intelligence and my intellect tell me I should be thinking about this. But how often are we actually pushing ourselves and holding ourselves accountable on a very ethical level of asking a question like this and really spending time, even just 1 minute like we did right here, thinking about this? These are important questions to think about when you're goal setting, because if not, you're just going to get stuck in that rat race of, okay, another activity, another thing on my planner, another thing on my calendar to do. But did you really take the time to ask, is this meaningful? Is this truly aligned with my vision for myself and how I want to live and lead my life? That's why I'm taking you there. And to answer the question in the chat more formally and the jokes that were happening in the comments, which I totally appreciated, it's not that I don't believe in the power of 5-year plans. It's just that I realized when I was younger that they aren't everything. Numbers aren't everything. Measurements aren't everything. And what I'm really saying is that I believe in lead versus flag. You may or may not know what lead versus flag is, but you probably have felt this or have done this yourself. So there are things called lead and lag measures, and these things are used through all sorts of frameworks and structures, economics, behavioral studies, all the things. But ultimately, for tonight's purposes, I'll explain lag measures as really quantitative measurements. They're biased towards thinking about quantitative measurements. So if you are focused on running and you want to shave down a minute on your how many minutes you can run in a mile, maybe instead of running 11 minutes per mile, you want to run 10 or 8 minutes, right? Then you're thinking about, am I performing and meeting my goal of 8 minutes versus 10 or 11 minutes? Lead measures are different than lag measures. Lead measures don't care about that 5-year plan, not directly anyway. They care about the qualitative conditions and factors that will ultimately lead to those desirable outcomes. And what I'm trying to say and argue here is that sometimes as a society, we're too obsessed with the numbers and those lag measures. Did I get that goal, that trophy, that award, whatever it may be, versus am I putting myself in the right environment with the right conditions, the right people around me, the right kinds of educational materials and content that can inspire me to be the best version of myself at work, at home, etc. I think we don't always, as a society, focus on the lead measures. So when we're thinking about goal setting for the rest of tonight, I really want you to push yourself to not just say, I want to reach a certain goal. It's, I'm going to reach a certain goal by creating these kinds of behaviors that support what I'm all about. And if you are still lost, I built a couple of slides to give you more examples about what I'm talking about. So one is, if your goal is to just get out of bed by 6 a.m., let's say you need to get to work by 7. In this world of the pandemic, I don't think most of you are going into work. But if we were in a pre or post-pandemic world and this were to be your reality, one way to do this as a lag measure is to say, I'm going to set my alarm on for 6 a.m. every weekday morning. And hopefully that will get me out of bed. But even though I can't see all of you because I'm in my share screen mode, if I were to say, raise your hands if you actually don't press snooze and get up with that first alarm, I'm going to guess that unless you're a huge morning person, you press your snooze button at least once or twice, and you really wouldn't be able to follow through, even if this lag measure is kind of proving a point that, well, I did set my alarm at 6. It really did go off, right? Like, did I check the mark or did I not? But there's a lead measure that may help you with this. And that one is a little bit simpler. If you know you need to wake up earlier, why not go to bed earlier at night? That will naturally help you condition yourself to wake up a little bit earlier. Easy peasy, right? Now, this is another step. And this is something that I see people actually get wrong all the time when it comes to networking. This is much more relevant to tonight's talk as well. So I thought I would segue from some of the easier metaphors to one that's a little bit more applicable here. If you know that networking helps you get job leads and just opportunities in general, then you may say, well, I'll just go to an event, I'll shake a lot of hands, or I'll wave across the screen on a Zoom call, and I'll just try to connect with a couple of people that way. But connecting like that isn't true connection, and we all know it, right? So what can you do to go deeper and to really network in a way where you're building community? You can do lead measures, like I'm going to build community. I'm going to consistently set up one-on-ones. I'm going to follow up and follow through whether or not somebody messaged me back. That's probably going to get you more of those leads and opportunities that you are hoping to get. That is why lead measures are important. So I'm not arguing that lag measures are all bad. I'm just saying that we live in a semi-toxic society where we are overweighing the importance of only thinking about lag measures when we should probably think about the dynamic of those two and how they can play off of each other and help us. Okay, so this is my next question for all of you. What are some of those lead measures, those positive, healthy, and reaffirming behaviors that you yourself can adopt to get you closer to your next big goal? And also, I want to say, I bet you're already employing some of those habits. So what are some of the things you are already doing that you like that you're doing and that you know you need to do more of? I'll give you just like maybe 30 to 45 seconds to fill this out, put it on your page. While you're wrapping up, I'll give some suggestions that I've written here. These things could be things like read more books, find more educational material, do more introductory calls, support your or find supportive peers and mentors, etc. I really just am trying to have you really jog your mind and not just your memory of ways to really help you set up the right conditions so that you succeed, and that you're, again, not just thinking about metrics, but thinking about how to really take yourself to the next place, the next mile, by conditioning yourself the right way first. Okay, So now the next framework that I'm going to share with you is more about priority mapping. This is probably what you assumed we would be doing on today's call, which is more of the listing and mapping out of your goals themselves, and then setting up a structure of accountability to help you get there and to help you plan. So with this, what we're going to do is I'm going to give you maybe 2 to 3 minutes to start creating a list of 3 to 10 personal or professional goals that you want to work on in the next couple of months. I said 1 to 6 months here, but ultimately this is something that you're self-guiding. So you can interpret the numbers as you would like. And before we begin, I just want to encourage you to honor the design thinking principle of no judgment and no expectations. Suspend that judgment and really just ask yourself what's important. What do you want to work on? And if you are having a little bit of trouble thinking about it, or if you want to just share with us, you can put it in the comments if you wrap up early as well. So I'll give us a 2 minute mark and I'll check in and see if everyone wants another couple of minutes on this, starting now. Ooh, thank you to Regina and Alexis and Joaquin. I hope I'm saying your name right, for chiming in on the chat. Seems like people are getting to a good place, and we're actually going to continue to do more of the list making and goal setting, so you can always add more. It's always, I feel intrusive on Zoom. I like to do in-person things so I can get a read of the body language, but this is like the exact opposite. So I hope that you can just bear with me as I check in and say, what else? What next? Like that, just because I can't get a read on where you are in the journey. All right, so we're going to do one more level of this prioritization before we start mapping things out in more of a planning-based methodology. And this is purely because I really want to push us one level further. So we're going to do a bit of value sorting. I want you to basically rank those goals that you wrote based off of what really resonates with your values. Which ones also just like motivate you to want to start now or tomorrow, because those things are probably the things that speak most to your values. Again, suspend judgment, do the thing. You'll probably only need like a minute, so I'll give you a minute starting now. Alrighty, so we have hit the 1 minute mark. I'm just going to pause for a moment and talk a little bit more about my rationale behind why I'm suddenly kind of diving in and saying, let's talk about values, because you probably just wanted to write your goals and get on with it. But I was reminded of this book called The Power of Meaning, which I picked up at the airport a couple of years ago, probably for an AIG event, to be honest, while I was traveling. And this book really, it didn't fully change my life, but it reaffirmed my life in that I believed I needed to keep searching for meaning and purpose. This book had quotes like this, that 4 in 1 Americans have not discovered a satisfying life purpose, which means if right now you're feeling a little lost or like you don't have purpose and meaning, maybe you feel comfort that you're not alone in this, but also I hope you feel that sense of maybe I should, maybe this is my wake up call to ask myself, what is my purpose? What gives me joy? Where are my values? What gives me a sense of meaning through the work and the life that I lead? And then related to this, the other quote that you see here is that nearly a quarter of Americans, about 100 million people, do not have a strong sense of what makes their lives meaningful. I don't know about you, but that makes me feel very depressed and sad, realizing and knowing that my neighbors, the people around me, my fellow colleagues and peers, a lot of them struggle with this, that they're not alone. And especially in this pandemic, where so many people have felt even more burnt out than usual, have felt the feeling of languishing, as many of you probably read an article all about that, right? Like these things are very common universal experiences, especially right now in the moment that we're in. And I did not want to be tone deaf about this. I wanted to make sure that this was acknowledged and that we think about it and ask ourselves, what can we do to try to move and shift in a different direction in a way that's closer to meaning? And also, I want to note that when I'm talking about meaning, I'm not talking about happiness. Aristotle had a term, I'm probably mispronouncing, butchering it, eudaimonia. I don't know, somebody can correct me in the chat or come on mic if you know how to say this correctly. But ultimately what he was saying and arguing is that human flourishing is actually the way forward. Thanks, Alexis. It's not about human happiness, which is a fleeting, momentary, temporary feeling happiness. Flourishing is about this continuous movement towards purpose, towards feeling like you're thriving. And that takes more. That actually takes a little bit of that resistance of the hard work, of knowing that things aren't always perfect, but feeling like you're flourishing because then you've tested your limits and you kept on going anyway. So this is what I want to get you towards, is thinking about the goals and the kinds of life experiences that you can design for yourself so that you're actually flourishing. Because a goal could be as simple as, I just need a new job. And that's fine. If you're in a place where financially that's more important, is like, get me any job, I just need money. That's one way that you need to live, hopefully not forever, but that's where you're at. But if you're at a place where you have the privilege to really decide, who do I want to be? How can I find purpose? How can I flourish? I really encourage you to dig deeper and to figure that out. Because I honestly, I'm not your friend. You may not know me personally, but I don't want you to be one of these people who are struggling, who don't have a sense of meaning and purpose. Typically, according to this book, people who don't have a sense of purpose, they tend to get sicker sooner. There are all these traits and side effects of not having a sense of meaning and purpose. And I don't want you to be one of them. I genuinely want you to live a good life, to have purpose and meaning, which is why I'm inviting you to think and rethink, if you need to, that list of goals that you have, and to think about what is it that you really need to do for yourself and for your meaning and your flourishing, not just your happiness. All right, now that I am done on getting on my soapbox, I want to ask you to start mapping this out. So here is a very quick and easy priority map and framework that I use with my clients when I'm doing coaching. And it is focused on helping them think a little bit deeper about how they want to start addressing all of the different goals that they have. Because suddenly, you start listing it out, and 2 seconds in, doesn't feel like a lot. And then all of a sudden, you look at that whole list and you're thinking, how do I get started? Now I'm overwhelmed. I don't know if you're actually feeling like that, but that is what I typically see with my clients. So this is a very simple priority map that you can do. If you have a piece of paper, it's probably easier for you to follow this format. If you are in a Word doc, you can either create columns or just create 3 different pages, and you can label them as follows. What you're already addressing, certain goals that you're kind of proactively doing on your own already, things that you're ready to start addressing. This is like a tomorrow thing, not like a 1 month from now thing. And then things that you're just not ready yet, but are important to you. You can start creating this. This is basically like your own Kanban board. And then if it helps, you can also sort them one level deeper by thinking about level of urgency. So you'll see this little line right here that I have. The things towards the top are the things where like it's more urgent to prioritize them. And then things deeper down into the columns are the things where I can get there, not there yet, and that's okay. So does anyone have any questions about this? I think it's pretty straightforward, but I'm more than happy to check in with all of you. And you can ask your questions in the chat. I'll give you maybe 2 minutes to work on this, and then we can check in. All righty, seems like everyone's ready to move forward. What we're going to do next is something that's basically a standard and a classic. Most of you have probably already done SMART goals at work or in other programs, but I'm going to bring it here to you. For anyone who's not familiar with SMART goals, a couple of people have been credited with it, so I just put it down at the bottom right there for credits. This is basically a very simple framework that uses the acronym SMART, so S-M-A-R-T, to think about how you're doing goal setting. So ultimately, with each goal that you have, what I want you to do afterwards, and feel free to take a screen grab of this or to just Google SMART goals and you'll find it again. I want you to actually write separate SMART goals for each separate goal or line item that you have. So with that, what it means is you need to be specific. What is this goal? Keep it simple, but give a bit of the who, what, where, when, why, how as needed. Then, is it measurable? How can you track your progress? Again, like I said, lead and lag are both important. So I'm not trying to say run away from numbers for life. I'm just saying think about both the numbers and the lead. But yes, so going back to this, measurable. How can you track your progress with this goal? Is it actually achievable and attainable? Is it manageable, which is an important piece of this? Don't put something just like so lofty, like I want to save the world or world peace, world hunger. I want to dissolve it. That's a great and honorable and noble goal, but create more bite-sized manageable ways so that you can actually look at it and say, did I achieve this goal or did I not in a reasonable amount of time? Next, we have relevant. Does this goal actually align with your personal and professional goals and values? And values I put here, not everyone uses it, but this is just my refrain from earlier of reminding you, relevance should also be relevant to your heart. Because if it's a goal that doesn't actually make your heart and soul sing, no matter how cheesy that sounds, you're probably not going to want to do it, right? So you want to create things that are actually relevant to your life, that are important to you and in alignment of who you truly are. Lastly, we have time bound. this is important because it's all about accountability. Make sure that it's not only measurable and achievable, but it's something that you can get done within a certain amount of time, or at least you can check in with yourself on a set date. So give yourself some sort of a deadline, even if it's arbitrary. And if you need an extra layer of accountability, bring someone in, have them hold you accountable. This is very important because I don't know if you know the concept of the four tendencies, but the four tendencies is a book, a quiz, and another framework that talks about accountability. And it acknowledges that not everybody has the same kind of tendency when it comes to accountability. Some people can just rely on themselves and say, like, I'm going to do this tomorrow, and they actually do it. Most people actually are not like that, though. Only like a quarter of the world is like that. Another quarter needs to rely on somebody else to tell them, I need you to do this. And only then will they do it. Then there are a couple of other kinds of tendencies. So if you're interested, Google the four tendencies, and I'll write it in the chat as well. Right here. Oh, I see that people are already here writing about it in the chat, so I don't need to type it out. But yes, I super duper recommend that because that will really help you beyond thinking about frameworks. It's about the self-awareness of who am I? How do I like to hold myself accountable or be held accountable? For myself, my tendency is that I basically question everything. I'm a questioner, which means that if you tell me, I need you to do this, I won't do it unless it actually aligns with my values, going back to values and with my own inner world and my own inner standards. But yeah, this is all about self-awareness. So it's beyond just the goal setting. It's about being honest. Like, I think I can just get this goal done by myself and I don't need to talk to anybody else. But if you know in your heart of hearts, like, nope, it's just not going to work that way with me, then find a way to build a system of support that can actually help you get there. It's absolutely 100% okay to ask for help, to ask for support. In fact, the people around you should care to want you to get to whatever your metaphorical finish line is. They're going to want to cheer for you. And if you're not around people who actually want to help you out like that, I then have to ask you the deeper life question of, like, where are you going to find that? Who's going to give you that support? Because it's always better, right, to have that team around you, those people who really are rooting for you. And that's a part of the goal setting world too, right? Building that culture. Those are part of the lead measures that you need, right? Having that community of support so that they're with you, so that they have your back as you continue to move forward. Okay, so we went over 3 frameworks: lead versus lag, values and priorities, and then also the SMART goals that we just talked about. We even talked about the 4 tendencies, which I wasn't sure we would get time for. So we've gone over a lot, but enough to give you some food for thought. For one moment, before I move forward, I want to give you a minute or two to start practicing 1 or 2 SMART goals. So I'll give you another minute or two on the clock, and you can pick maybe 1 or 2 of the most urgent goals that you have to practice this and to get a sense of how SMART goals work, especially if you aren't familiar with them. So I'll give you 2 minutes starting now. All right. We can start wrapping up. It's okay if you didn't finish. Again, you are the one who's writing all of this, so you can return to it at any point, and you can also return to any of the other frameworks that we used earlier. I can make these slides also accessible through AIGA Boston. I'll send them to them afterwards so that you can refer back to these at any point. I believe there's also going to be a YouTube video actually, so that'll probably be even easier than finding an obscure PDF. So you can refer to the YouTube video that will be uploaded later of tonight's event. Ultimately, I want to leave you with just a couple of last wise words. The first is this: a man who needs no introduction, of course. But I found this quote and I just thought, oh my goodness, I have to share it, which is that talent is a pursued interest. In other words, anything you are willing to practice, you can do. Don't just take it from me, you can take it from Bob Ross. My sisters gave me this, it's so cute. And I just wanted to pass on his wisdom, but also his inner peace and just who he is. And just remember, this is a guy who went in front of the camera and said, I'm just going to paint mountains for a living. This is my calling. So what is your calling? Who are you? What are your goals? Get out there, do the thing, paint the tree. On the topic about trees, I actually want to also remind you about the growth cycle, right? We're constantly growing. And as you do goal setting, remember that at some point you feel like this little puny little seed in the ground, and that's all that you are. But you're like, I'm ready to be a tree. I'm ready to grow. I'm ready to take root and do things and be magnificent. But you got to start somewhere, right? And then little by little, you become a bud, a stem, a branch, a tree, and the cycle continues. But then you want to keep moving and growing, and then you start again. So it's okay to have to humble yourself, to press reset, or to acknowledge like, I want to be a tree, but I'm just not there yet. I'm just this little stem. I barely got any leaves, right? This is just part of the growth cycle. It's a beautiful thing to be able to grow again and again. Don't be afraid of the tumultuousness that can come with growth, because it will be so rewarding at the end. And also, don't allow yourself to cap out and to stop growing just because you're like, I've become this magnificent tree. I'll give you a perfect example. A really large, reputable organization asked me at one point, hey, do you want to be our creative director? And I was probably 26 years old. I had just started at the Washington Post. And I thought, you know what? That is potentially even like more amazing than working at the Washington Post. But then I thought, this is just not the right time in my life. And if I was greedy or selfish, I would make that jump, right? Like I want to go from tree to tree. But I was like, that's just not natural to the cycle. And that's not what's right for me, and not what's aligned with where I want to go and who I want to be, not in this moment. So I didn't take it, even though it would have given me a great title and a great story. I just knew that wouldn't be the right move for me. It takes a lot of bravery to do the right thing. So I want to encourage you, wherever you are in this cycle, to just follow the process, as annoying as that sounds, and to really honor your truth and where you need to be and your growth. And then lastly, I want to leave you with these words right here. I'm probably going to butcher his name, Frederick Beutschner. I have no idea. Somebody else can correct me in the chat. But his words are important here. He says, your vocation lies where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. That's really lofty, but ultimately what I think he's getting at is that there's a way for you to use your gifts to help the world, to meet the world where it needs you most, and to do something about it, to shift mountains and to move mountains. And it's, it starts with you. It starts with you knowing and having enough self-awareness to say, this is what I can do. This is who I want to be. It's not just about tiny goals. It's about what you're going to do with those goals, how you're going to ultimately meet the world's deep hunger. I really encourage you to go there, to take yourself 1,000 steps forward. And it all starts with realizing that you can't just dream for somebody else. You really have to design your own dream. You have to design your own future and believe in yourself and take those steps, hold yourself accountable however you can to design your bigger dream. So with that, I want to thank you. I want to thank Bernie. I want to thank Dan and the rest of the team at AIGA Boston. I want to encourage you to reach out. You can reach out by visiting my website, phimher.com/contact. Follow me on LinkedIn or find me there. And really just stay engaged. We will have a Q&A as well, so you can ask questions along the way if you would like. And with that, I will end this keynote and sharing my screen. And I also just want to thank you for listening in. I know that it's a lot to be asking you to do so much writing and thinking and brainstorming on a Thursday evening, but I appreciate you for humoring me and doing the thing. And now there's no more writing. Now you can just come on and you can ask questions. I also see that Bernie has come on his camera, so I'm gonna go on mute. Oh, I wasn't sure if you were gonna say something.
Oh, no, well, I just want to say thanks. That was awesome. Yeah, definitely some heavy thinking. My journal's a little messy, but I'm a writer, not a designer, so that's that's my excuse. But yeah, Phim, thanks so much. For those who don't have questions, feel free to drop. I will be hanging on for any questions that are AIJ related. Phim is here to answer any questions related to everything she just talked about. Yeah, also feel free to drop things in the chat, follow up with us later. And there's going to be a post-event survey also that we're going to send out tomorrow. And last note, yeah, watch out for the recording if you'd like to watch any of this back. So floor is open to questions if anyone has any.
I'll also jump in and say that as a speaker, I always am curious what people are taking away. So even if you don't have a question, but you just want to say, this thing really stuck with me, or this kind of caught me by surprise, I'm always curious about that too. So you are more than welcome to jump on the mic or say something in the chat as well if you feel more comfortable just being in the chat. I know we got a shy crowd. That's okay.
Hi, I'm gonna jump in. Hi, Alexis. I'm all the way from California. Thank you guys for having this wonderful event. I guess it's not really like, I always struggle trying to form questions, so bear with me here. But what, I've always struggled with SMART goals. I always have. I have like this really good, like lofty, big picture goal. But when it comes down to like breaking it down into like those manageable steps, I've always struggled. Do you have any advice or tips on how to like take those first little baby steps and kind of taking this bigger goal and trying to mulch it into smaller steps?
Yes, I'm trying to find my Notion page to show you actually how I do this with my clients. I'll take a hot second, but what I'll say, well, I can also just give you the precursor and tell you what I do, even if you can't find it. But ultimately, I actually truncate down SMART goals to just three things. One, give me the backstory, and I can write it here. Like, list out the context. Like, why does this matter? Like, why does this goal have a reason for being, right? Like on your list of to-dos. Then after that, what are the actionable steps that you can take? These should be realistic, going back to kind of like the SMART goals, right? Like truncating it down. These are actionable steps that you know you can start taking today or tomorrow that you can do. They should be bite-sized and manageable, right? So like, let's say going back to like the save the earth, protect the planet. You cannot wrap your arms around every tree and say, I've done my job, right? Like, even if you wanted to as a human, you can't move that fast and do that, right? Even if you wanted to. So what are the actionable steps that you can take today? Then number three is accountability. Ultimately, how are you going to hold yourself accountable to this? This could be, I'm gonna like do a calendar reminder, and every quarter I'm going to check in with myself. Or going back to the four tendencies, it's I need to ask somebody else to check in on me, because if not, I can't trust that I'll be responsible enough. And that's something where it doesn't make us feel good inside, right? So like, am I irresponsible then? No, you're being responsible by asking somebody else to help you. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the most responsible thing you can do, right? And so if you just think of it as three things like that, right? Like, what's the context and the backstory for this goal? What are the action steps and accountability that will probably lead you further than being overwhelmed by like, gotta write all these 5 separate things. And with the context, what's helpful here is I ask all of my clients to think about like the backstory and the history of why it hasn't worked in the past. Because oftentimes we start something and then we stop, right? Because like, oh, it didn't work out, or I started feeling overwhelmed, or honestly, I'm triggered by this thing, or like, my boss always pushed me to do it, and now I have like kind of workplace PTSD. I think of my boss and I don't want to do this thing, right? And so it's like allowing yourself to cathartically release that and be honest and real is part of the process of being, now I got over that hump. Now I'm one step closer to just thinking about, okay, so what's the thing that I actually need to do, which then allows you to go into phase 2, the action steps. That said, like SMART goals are really great, just industry standard, but if those are hard, these 3 steps should hopefully help you. And I believe you or somebody else had asked related to this, like how many goals should I be trying to juggle at once? I think this is all relative to your time, your bandwidth, how much you can really commit. And it's absolutely okay to start with just one thing. Like if that's the only thing you can do, that's fine. It's kind of like, honestly, I'm bad at running, but I'll tell you this, you hate the first couple of minutes, but once you get going, you're like, all right, not too bad, right? So sometimes with goal setting, right, like it's the same thing. Maybe it's okay to start with just one thing, because once you get going, then you'll naturally be like, I believe in myself, I'm confident in myself. And then you start doing more of it. But you got to start from somewhere, and it's okay if it's just one thing at a time. What I wouldn't encourage you to do is to be like, I have a list of 10. I'm going to start doing all 10 right now. That would probably be a disaster. So I would say healthy estimation or estimate is like maybe 2 to 3.
Okay.
And that's okay. And it goes back to now habit building too, right? Like it takes more than 2 days to build a healthy habit, right? Like anywhere, like there's all the science behind it, where it could be, 3 months or however many, like all the different behavioral scientists will give you a different number. But ultimately, we all know a habit and a behavior will take a long time to build. But you got to start on day 1, and today can be your day 1. And then, you keep on going. And that's not just you, Alexis. I don't want you to feel like, oh my God, she threw so much energy at me. I am saying this as a whole to everybody who's on the Zoom.
I am used to throwing a lot of energy at everyone, so no problem.
Got it. I caught it right now.
Thank you. I really appreciate
oh
it.
yeah, thank you too. Does anyone have any other questions, comments, concerns? you know where to find me. You can find me on LinkedIn, or I'll write down my contact information here again. More than happy to offer anybody who's on this line a free consultation for your own career coaching. If you would like, you can just email me and contact me through this URL, and we can set that up for you. But yeah, thank you so much to the AIGA Boston team. I'm happy to hang out for another couple of minutes if anyone wants to linger or is feeling a little shy. But yeah, thank you, y'all.